2023, this round of wildfire smoke will not cause air quality concerns.
This is aloft, so the good news is this isn't surface level smoke. We're talking above us, so that should keep the air quality down by us. Here on the ground looking pretty good. Just some hazy skies, some pretty sunsets in the evening hours as this next batch of smoke moves in Wednesday and into Thursday. That could keep us on the smoky side for the second half of the week as well.
Time for some news about your money in the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Markets are up. Dow up 300 points this hour. NASDAQ up 196. S&P 500 up 51. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth. Annex Private Client. Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Sports, traffic, and weather are next. Siding Unlimited. WTMJ News Time 9:05.
This report is sponsored by Diamonds Direct. Your love, their passion.
This September, Diamonds Direct's ultimate offer is back, stronger than ever. Diamonds Direct helps you get the perfect jewelry gift with 0% interest. That's right, enjoy 5 years of 0% financing on any Diamonds Direct purchase. It's your chance to get her the perfect ring with 0 interest and comfortable monthly payments that fit your budget. But act fast. This offer ends September 30th. For details and more, visit DiamondsDirect.com. Spread your payments over 5 years with 0 interest on approved credit. Only at Diamonds Direct. Your love, our passion.
Jeff Levering here. How are baseball and Pella windows and doors of Wisconsin alike? Pella manufactures all their own products. Baseball teams develop their own players in the minors. Pella tests every product thousands of times to ensure it stands the test of time. A baseball player's ultimate test is to get called up to the big leagues, hoping to play well enough to stay. Right now, at Pella, get as low as $18 per window and $81 per patio door per month. Certain restrictions apply. It ends September 30th. Visit PellaWI.com today.
Save now during the Labor Day sale at Ken Michaels Furniture. Special factory incentives make this the perfect time to save 35% on a new sofa, chair, or sectional crafted by Norwalk Furniture. American made with your choice of fabric or leather in a style and size to fit your need. Available in as little as 35 days. Can't wait? All our inventory is sale priced and ready for immediate delivery. Shop today and save during the Labor Day sale at any of our Ken Michaels Furniture stores in Brookfield, Greenfield, or downtown Milwaukee. There's no doubt that a better night's sleep makes for better days, and a good quality mattress helps make it happen. When you buy your new Milwaukee mattress from Ken Michaels Furniture, you are assured of a mattress made for your needs out of the finest natural materials direct from our Milwaukee factory. We make every style, size, and firmness of mattress. And with our factory direct prices, you will save up to 50% compared to other brands. Milwaukee mattresses from Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield, Greenfield, or downtown Milwaukee.
Time for a WTMJ Sports Update from the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All Sports Desk. Jordan Love suffered an MCL sprain during Friday night's season-opening loss to the Eagles in Brazil. Green Bay hopes the injury will last only 3 to 4 weeks. Packers host the Colts next Sunday. Wisconsin improves to 2-0 following a 27-13 win over South Dakota. Badgers host number 4 Alabama Saturday at noon. Brewers fell to the Rockies 4-1 from AmFam Field. They open a 3-game set against the Giants at Oracle Park tomorrow night. Take a look at the roads now with your WTMJ Johnson & Sons paving time saver traffic. Couple of slow spots out there still. I-94 eastbound, the Zoo interchange to downtown. Closer to a 10-minute drive usually takes you 5 or 6. And then also the construction zone, I-43 northbound, Layton Avenue to downtown. Actually, that's not the construction zone, but that's about a 13-minute drive this morning. Then some construction. I-43 southbound, Brown Deer Road to downtown. Look for slowing in that area this morning.
Traffic is sponsored by Hall Mazda Milwaukee. Visit hallmazdamilwaukee.com.
Be our eyes on the road. Report accidents, slowdowns, and road conditions to the WTMJ Hall Volkswagen Traffic Tip Line at 414-238-9329.
Here's your WTMJ 5-day forecast. We have that haze and smoke in the air this morning. It's going to be warm and sunny today, high of 81. Clear tonight, lows 58 lakeside, 52 inland. Sunny and warm Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with highs in the mid-80s midweek. Then partly cloudy and 79 on Friday. 64 in Madison, 66 in Green Bay, 67 in Milwaukee. I'm Connie Weber, Siding Unlimited WTMJ News Time, 9:08.
Good morning, Wisconsin. So let's pour that coffee and talk to some experts about what's going on in Milwaukee, Madison, Washington, and beyond. Broadcasting live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios at the Avenue in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. It's the Political Power Hour on WTMJ. Here's your host, Steve Scafidi.
Should we talk about the government?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Monday program, Political Power Hour. As usual, we have our journalist in studio this Monday. We have great local reporter, soon to be national reporter, maybe. Is that your aspirations to be a national reporter at some point? Come on.
Not really. I mean,
AJ Byport, by the way, CBS 58.
Good to be here as always, Steve. Honestly, not really.
No.
I mean, I always, you never say never with anything because you always got to keep your opportunities open for anything, right? But I'm honestly happy here. It was funny. I was just in Chicago over the weekend, and I was with my cousin, and my cousin goes, "Oh, if you could get a job reporting in Chicago, would you rather go home and where you grew up and be around us and do that?" And I said no. I said I'm close enough to my family there, but I love living here. I love living in Milwaukee. I've come to really love Wisconsin. So to answer that question, not really.
That was a good answer to that question. Now let's get into it because when I knew you were going to be on today, I said I want to talk about public schools. Certainly the leader of the public schools in the state of Wisconsin, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jill Underly, and of course MPS. And we're going to start first half hour on the standards of education. And you had a great interview with the superintendent, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. Jill Underly. I want to play for the audience out there a little bit of this, and then we're gonna go through this in some pretty specific detail because some of this to me is maddening. Let's hear from the superintendent.
I think it's clear for parents to understand and educators to understand now with the change. So what the change does, it changes it to a growth mindset. I feel again like this is easier to understand where kids are and where they stand on the spectrum of learning, and it also puts us into alignment with what other states are using for their language too, which makes it less confusing overall.
You're saying developing is easier to understand than below basic for a parent?
I think so. I think that's certainly what our educators were hoping for in this change as well, and they feel it's easier to understand. And let's just be honest. How we do assessment and interpreting assessment scores, a parent myself, it's really difficult to understand these scores. But I feel that when I talk to my son or my daughter's teacher and they say your son is developing in this skill, I feel then, that's that growth mindset. It's, certainly giving us a goal to work forward.
State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. Jill Underly, when you spoke to her recently, okay, so I call it the war on words, right? So developing now is supposed to be a better use of sort of educational assessment than below basic?
Below basic.
Yeah.
So, she's talking about the growth mindset, and it's like growth-based language. Here's, for the people not familiar that are listening, here's what the 4 categories were before. This is all tied to the statewide standardized test that the students take, the forward exam. And there were and there still are 4 different categories that a student will fall in based on how they tested. The old terms were advanced, proficient, basic, below basic. Well, now advanced is still advanced, but proficient is now meeting. Basic is changed to approaching, and below basic is developing. And that clip was kind of the part of the interview where I kind of followed up just to say, just to be clear, your average parent is going to understand developing more clearly than below basic in terms of how their child is doing. Because that's something that we had questions about as we looked through this, was just for your average parent, what's easier for them to understand? If you're told your child is basic, and the superintendent said, well, that's kind of insulting to be told your child is basic.
How is that insulting?
That was what her response was that to describe a child as basic or below basic is insulting. This is more of a growth mindset. My angle in the interview was not so much whether it's insulting or not, but more so the crux of it is what is easier for a parent to understand. If say a single parent's working 2 jobs, what's easier for them to understand? They don't have all the time in the world to help out with their child's homework. They're barely trying to understand, what's happening with the child in school. And if you're told your child is at a below basic level, what's easier to understand, that or your child is developing?
Look, I understand that we always want to make things easily more understandable for parents, and we certainly, this has been a trend for many years, maybe decades, where we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings in school, and we want to make sure that everybody's nurtured and all that stuff. I get all that, and there's a lot of things going on in school that make the learning process so much more difficult, including bullying and all of that stuff. But when I see this war of words, changing terminologies, one wonders, I'm going to ask you this, and then we can go to the break and you can answer it afterwards, how much of this is related to declining performance at the state level, when you look at all the school systems, all the school districts, how much of this is trying to massage to the public declining performance in schools? AJ Bayatpour, outstanding reporter at CBS 58 in Milwaukee. We'll continue the conversation. Political Power Hour Monday edition right here at 620 WTMJ.
It's like playing baseball in the house.
Mom, Dad broke the window.
Without the risk of...
Again.
That. Every Thursday at 8:40, play virtual baseball on Wisconsin's Morning News. Step up to the virtual plate and test your mettle against the best.
Swing and a drive to right.
It's virtual baseball, presented by Signing Unlimited. Only played here on WTMJ.
Hey, this is WTMJ Steve Schiavone for Advent. Do not settle for waking up at night, tossing and turning, restless nights of sleep, and snoring. You don't have to put up with this. I decided to do something about my snoring and all of that other stuff. I went to Advent, 30-minute visit. Talked to 2 docs. They put me at ease. I asked my questions. They had great answers. We did a really simple sleep study at home in my own bed. They determined my problem, sinuses, nasal passages in my breathing triangle. Now, everybody's different. Different problems, different solutions. But there are certainly things you can do about it, and don't wait. After my short procedure, I breathe better than ever, more oxygen to this brain that I have, and I'm sleeping through the whole night, which is also a blessing for my wife, Kathy. If you struggle like I did, take the time to see how Advent can help you. To find out how breathing well and sleeping well can make your nights better, go to adventknows.com, schedule an appointment today, because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better.
Hi, I'm Jim Token, president of Adam. Do you ever miss the good old days?
When you didn't need a password to do everything but tie your shoes?
No, I'm talking about car shopping. When dealer lots were filled with new inventory and there were big incentives and discounts. Well, those days are back at Adam member dealers all over Metro Milwaukee, making it a great time to go car or truck shopping again.
I suppose I need a password.
No, just find your nearest Adam member dealer or start your new car search at adam.com.
AJ Bayatpour, CBS 58 outstanding reporter, joining me in studio. We always have journalists on Monday, and he's one of the best ones in town here. No aspirations to be a national journalist at this moment, but as you said, you never, you hold your cards close. You can always make that decision later. You're still a youngster, relatively speaking.
I don't feel young.
You're probably tired from the weekend, like I am. All right. We played the clip from your interview with Dr. Jill Underly from the State Department of Public Instruction. The changing of the language. Before the break, I said to you, or asked you, is this a response to declining testing results in the state of Wisconsin or underperforming school districts? Your reporting suggests what?
Well, here's what the DPI is saying, and it's true. They're not alone. So what happened a little more than 10 years ago was a lot of states, Wisconsin one of them, linked their cutoffs on this forward exam to standards established by what's called the National Assessment for Educational Progress, shorthand is NAEP, and a lot of states moved to that. NAEP is universally considered to be a very strict grader. They have high standards. So, it sounds bad when you say, say 17% of fourth graders are proficient at reading. That's almost by design. I mean, to be proficient at reading or math, according to the NAEP standards, you have to be very good. So Wisconsin adopted those standards under then State Superintendent Tony Evers, now the governor, of course. Other states have now backed off of that. Within the last year or so, states of all political stripes, as I said in my story, New York to Oklahoma, some very blue states, some very red states have now backed off of linking their state scores to that high NAEP testing level. So Wisconsin's not an outlier in that regard. What's interesting, though, is when we asked Governor Evers last week if he agrees with what DPI is doing, he said he does not think the standards should be lowered, and essentially said that was a DPI decision, not a governor decision, kind of distancing himself.
Yeah, interesting separation there.
From that decision there. But that's the reasoning. And just to put into context, because he said we'll kind of get into, to give folks listening an understanding of what the bigger question is, because it's part of a bigger trend to not be linked with the state level to this national breakdown. But folks like Alan Borsick at Marquette, who's been following education in Wisconsin for 20 plus years, was most concerned that the scores themselves are changing. So here's what the old range was, okay? For third grade math results, the old test range used to be a low of 517 to a high of 611. Well, the new scale for third grade math is between 1,370 and 1,740. So now the numbers are totally changed. So now the concern is it's going to be that much harder now to trace how did students do.
You can't compare
pre-cutoff.
and contrast.
It's now become apples and oranges.
Right.
I'm sure some very smart people can find ways to weight this and make it comparable, but it's going to be so much harder now to track long-term trends.
Do you think that was done on purpose by design?
That's what some people suggest. Far be it from me to read into intent on what's going on, and it's not my place to pass that judgment on, was there a nefarious intent here? But the facts are the facts. It's going to be very difficult to make a comparison now because the scale has changed so significantly.
A couple great text points. One says, Department of Public Instruction, where do they get their sort of background material from? Where are they getting their public input from? They have hearings on this stuff before they make these grand declarations?
There are talks, there are meetings with educators from around the state.
I know educators, but the public, the parents.
Sure. I think that's a fair question going forward. Is there enough being done? Because, here this afternoon at City Hall, we're going to have yet another Common Council committee meeting on the redesigning the city flag and what happened the last time. There's a big kerfuffle about whether there's enough community input on the city flag. So, should there be more parent involvement on changing the way we score student statewide testing? Perhaps. A greater effort to reach out to parents. And interestingly enough that you mentioned that, there was a study that just came out last week that ranked all 50 states in terms of transparency and how easy it is for parents to access and understand their state report cards. And Wisconsin did not fare very well on that.
Where do we fall in that, right? Do you know?
It was originally an F and then changed to a D was the grade that Wisconsin received in terms of transparency on the report card.
All right, so I'm going to read some of these texts and just get your response to it. This is from a public school teacher for 34 years. Below basic is just being honest. Are we at the point, and I understand some of these are opinion questions, so if you don't want to as a reporter, that's fine. But, when you say to a child and a parent, you're not meeting the standards. You're below what the standards are, below basic is the terminology, and you change it to some sort of innocuous, more subtle, more softer, developing language. Are you really serving the student or the parent? And especially when you're changing the numbers so you can't even compare and contrast between what used to happen and what happens now. So there's no historical record to even base your change on.
Well, when you look at that term developing, the question I have is, so what are we going to say when there's a 10th grader who doesn't know how to read? You're just going to say they're developing? It seems as though if you're in 10th grade and you're in the 8th percentile of readers at your grade level, it's a more serious situation than you're just developing. And the question I go back to is, if that's the term you're using, are you short-selling the situation? Unfortunately, if a child's in 10th grade and can't read, they probably have bigger problems than what term you're using with their parent, because the issues at home might be even bigger than that. But it just goes to show, to that longtime teacher's point, if you are being clear, and if that child, we hope, does have some kind of support system at home, some kind of guardian, can you level with that parent? It may be a upsetting term to be told you're below basic, but does that help get through to that parent if you're being a little bit more blunt?
One more comment on the WTMJ Talk and Text line. You can join the conversation, 855-616-1620. Are you kidding? Below basic, your kid needs some help. Developing, keep ignoring your kids. They must be doing okay. Leave it all up to the teacher.
Again, that's why I keep going back to that question there. And the biggest question of all is, because you asked before the break, hey, is this trying to mask a downward trend? There's been some slippage on Wisconsin's NAEP scores, not massive slippage or anything, but there's been some slippage over the past several years going back to pre-COVID. But the one trend that has remained for 20 plus years, I'm sure some of you folks, especially the educators who are listening to this, are aware of this. Wisconsin has the biggest gap between black and white students on this testing, and that's been the case for 20 plus years. So to tie that all up, by changing these terms, by changing the scoring scale, what does that do to close that gap? That's one of the big questions going forward, because as long as this gap persists, it's going to be, as Alan Borsick said in our interview last week, that is an urgent crisis right now in the state and in the city. And that should be something that at the state level, at the local level, and people outside of education should all be working toward. No one in the state should be remotely satisfied knowing that this gap has persisted, and Wisconsin has been the worst in the U.S. in that category for more than 2 decades.
It's shameful, and it's nowhere more glaring than Milwaukee Public School District, which has had really, really suffered some really significant declines in student performance and a lot of other measures that I want to ask you about during the break. Think about this. I watched the interview and listened to it that you sent us the clip from with Dr. Jill Underly. Don't answer now. It seemed, and maybe I'm mischaracterizing this, a little bit combative. I want to get your thoughts on that. And her response, sort of like using it as, if you're saying that the language was insulting, I think she used that term. Was it a more combative discussion, or was it positive? I want to get your thoughts on that. You can join us as well, 855-616-1620, the WTMJ Talk and Text line. And listen, of course, to the Political Power Hour Monday edition, which is always journalists, right here on 620 WTMJ.
While you rest on the weekends, we work for you. Wisconsin's Weekend Morning News with Libby Collins. The latest in news.
People usually vote for one of the mainstream candidates, or they don't vote. I'm just not sure if Kennedy's endorsement of Trump will make a difference.
Entertainment.
This is what happens when you make movies aimed at women audiences. Hollywood is like, oh, that's interesting. Let's never do that.
And more.
It is the most horrifying picture you've ever seen of your life. It's in Vanity Fair.
Every Sunday morning starting at 8 on WTMJ.
Hey, this is WTMJ, Steve Scafidi for Adair, A-D-A-I-R. Love Adair. They just put a brand new floor in my basement landing area. They did my kitchen 20 years ago. Owner Rob says it still looks fantastic when he came out to the house. They've been in business, get this, for 65 years. They have a design team, I worked with them, ready to help with all your flooring and now remodeling needs. Home or business, doesn't matter. Family owned and operated right there in Franklin, South 27th Street, south of the Rawson Avenue exit on I-94. Or north of the Ryan Road Highway 100 exit. Easy to find. Stop in and tell them Steve Scafidi sent you. Visit them online at ADAIR.com.
With an ever-changing inventory, you never know what great bargains you're going to be able to find at St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores. It makes shopping fun because the best finds are the ones you had no idea you'd even come across. And when they're at thrift store prices, it feels good. And it feels even better to know you're helping us help others. Shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
We love being a trusted friend in the community for those who need an attorney but don't know where to turn. Our clients aren't the kind of people who typically bring lawsuits. Our clients have been hurt in a crash or accident and need our help and advice. I'm Jeff Zergabel of Pasternak and Zergabel. Frank Pasternak and I are injury lawyers living, working, and giving back in our community. When you need help from exceptional personal injury lawyers, go to Pasternak and Zergabel at injurywisconsin.com.
WTMJ's Greg Matzik here for Holiday Automotive in Fond du Lac, the destination for Wisconsin's best 2024 closeout sale. It's where to score deep closeout savings on favorites from Chevrolet, Buick, and GMC. Get more for your trade and discover car buying that makes fans of drivers from all over the Badger State. Fans like me. Fun, simple, and pressure-free car shopping is the way it works at Holiday. Their transparent, simplified pricing and buying approach lets you relax and focus on finding the one that's right for you, then pairing it up with enticing, money-saving incentives and offers to lower your bottom line. I've driven with Holiday a long time. The team culture, passion for excellence, and friendly, upbeat atmosphere is real. It wins fans and has earned them top-ranked status as Wisconsin's #1 Buick and GMC dealer per 2023 Buick and GMC Zone sales records. Find yours, discover the difference, and drive it home today from Holiday, Chevrolet, Buick, and GMC in Fond du Lac and online at holidaygm.com. It's worth the trip.
Welcome to Political Power Hour Monday edition, which means journalists, and today our outstanding journalist, local journalist, AJ Bayatpour, CBS 58. Spending some time this half hour talking about the educational component of schools. After the bottom of the hour break for local and ABC, we're going to talk about this SRO question, which is frankly on top of mind for everybody, especially given what happened recently with the mass shooting we saw last week. All right, so I mentioned the sort of the tone of the interview. Would I mischaracterize it and say there was a little bit of tension there, or are they just doing what they do and trying to justify their decision making?
I don't think that Superintendent Underly was being combative necessarily, but there was a defensiveness. There was certainly a defensiveness of, hey, we think that these changes are good, and those changes are being questioned. So I think there was a little defensiveness there. I think that part of it is because there's a sense that they're being attacked for these changes, saying, to what you talked about earlier, the intent. There are some folks out there saying the intent of this was to purposely make things confusing, was to purposely cloud, pre-scoring change, post-scoring change. And again, that's not something, It's not my place. Unless I see evidence, it's not my place to weigh in on that. I'm sticking just to the facts here. But I think that because there's this line of attack saying you did this for nefarious reasons, there's a little defensiveness in the interview when those changes are being questioned.
Real quick, because you only got about 20 seconds. Some of the texters bring up the COVID lost generation. They were not schooled in the normal traditional manner of being in a classroom. How much big of a role did that play?
Well, the numbers are the numbers. There was learning loss. Learning loss happened, and you have to question if that learning loss is magnified in a place like Milwaukee where the kids went a longer period of time without being physically in the classroom.
And I said this before on a different show. The ultimate reality of what happened during that period, we won't know for probably a generation.
Absolutely.
Maybe longer, because those children will grow up and they'll have missed something, I think. All right, AJ Batore sticking around for the next half hour. SROs in schools, MPS, what in the world are you doing? Before we get to any of that, we have the local news from Connie Weber. Stick around. Lots more to talk about with AJ Batore, but here is the latest news from ABC.
ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump preparing in their own ways for tomorrow night's first presidential debate. ABC national correspondent Stephen Portnoy with more on what Donald Trump is doing to get ready.
He eschews elaborate mock debates, but aides say Trump is preparing, huddling over policy with a small team of advisors. Those advisors include Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz and former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Two sources familiar with the prep say Trump has been briefed on Harris's performance at past debates, including her sharp use of the phrase, "I'm speaking," to stop then Vice President Mike Pence from cutting her off in 2020.
The debate will air on ABC. A month after a judge declared Google's search engine an illegal monopoly, the company is now defending itself in another antitrust lawsuit. The Justice Department and several states contend Google built and maintains a monopoly over online advertising. Pope Francis in Timor-Leste. Tomorrow he will celebrate Mass for as many as 750,000 Catholics. This is ABC News.
Citing Unlimited, WTMJ News Time 9:31. Decision: Wisconsin Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz scheduled to return to Wisconsin Friday. Governor Walz will hold an event at Central Wisconsin Airport in Mosinee, the same location former President Donald Trump held a rally at last Saturday. The Harris-Walz campaign says Governor Walz will also attend political events in Wausau Friday evening. The visit to Wisconsin is Governor Walz's second to the state this month. 3 extra police officers, both at Tyson and Woodworth Middle Schools in Fond du Lac today after threats made on social media Friday. An investigation by school administrators and school resource officers determined the threats aren't credible. No people hit, but a vehicle and building were struck by gunfire on North Richmond Street between Lindbergh Street and Marquette Street in Appleton Saturday night. Police asking anyone with information on this to call them. Time for some news about your money. In the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update, Dow is up 381 points at 40,726. NASDAQ is up 125 at 16,816. S&P 500 up 42 points, 5,451. Get an honest opinion of where you are financially and where you're headed. Work with a fee-only fiduciary. Start at annexwealth.com. Take a look at the roads now with your WTMJ Johnson & Sons Paving Time Saver traffic. We have a new crash on the ramp from I-94 south to Highway 119 east. Expect some lane closures there. Also, there is a disabled vehicle. It is off left, but it's blocking the shoulder. I-41 south at the ramp from College Avenue. Here's your WTMJ 5-day forecast. Sunny and warm today with some haze and smoke in the air. High of 81. Clear tonight with lows in the lower to upper 50s. Mostly sunny and warm tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday. Tomorrow's high 82. Looking at mid-80s Wednesday and Thursday. Partly cloudy Friday with a high of 79. 64 in Madison, 66 in Green Bay, and 67 in Milwaukee. I'm Connie Weber. Citing Unlimited, WTMJ News Time 9:33.
I'm WTMJ's Sandy Max. What makes senior living at Three Pillars so special? Let's hear from Three Pillars resident Lola.
When I was new, I come in and sit down, and people join me. And you get to know people, talk about feeling welcome. Art class is first early in the morning. Right now, I'm also involved in being a production assistant with a theater group. Every month, they have a supper club with a different theme. First one that I went to, they had a luau. I am so lucky to have ended up in this place, and I think it's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Schedule a tour today at threepillars.org.
Experience, knowledge, and results. That's what really matters when you need help after a serious truck accident. You'll need a lawyer experienced in fighting and winning for people just like you. Gruber Law Offices has the resources, strong track record of success, and a team of experienced lawyers to take care of your needs. We've successfully helped people injured in big truck accidents for more than 35 years. Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all.
For WTMJ contest rules, visit WTMJ.com/contests.
Between market volatility, inflation, global unrest, and the presidential election, there's a lot going on. Take control with help from Annex Wealth Management. Have a plan built that matches up with your investment and retirement goals. Annex does it as a fee-only fiduciary with unbiased advice. Annex offers financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, and Annex Ignite. Head to AnnexWealth.com, click the Get Started button. It's time to put things in order. Know the difference with a fee-only fiduciary. AnnexWealth.com.
Hi everyone, Jeff Levering here, and when we moved into our home 10 years ago, we knew the time would come to replace our roof. That came sooner than we thought with the storms during the spring. So we called the pros at Ridgetop Exteriors, and they did more than just live up to their motto, trusted, local, and affordable. Within just a few weeks, we had our new roof picked and completed. Their team treated us just like family, and the customer service was a real home run. Give Ridgetop Exteriors a call and book your appointment today to ensure your project gets completed before the next big storm.
AJ Bivor, great reporter at CBS 58 in Milwaukee. All right, so I want to continue on the schools conversation because this one, I'm editing myself as I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. It just burns me up. The fact that we now have a state law that says you must have SROs in MPS, and I think the number is 26. Does that sound right?
25.
25. I think it should be more. I think one of the original numbers was 70 or maybe even 100. I would argue, and this is certainly an opinion, that SROs make a big difference in the safety, even the administration of schools, controlling hallways to some degree, talking to kids, establishing, this is one of those positives that never gets talked about, establishing a positive relationship with young people, especially when you get them at an early age, middle school, early high school, where they can stop seeing law enforcement, public safety as the enemy and actually go, hey, that's a real person. Man or woman who's just doing their job, helping me out, keeping me safe. But to get to the facts or the nut of this problem, MPS was required by Act 12 to put these 25 SROs in MPS. I have heard every excuse in the book. Working on it, conversations ongoing, trying to figure out the logistics. How is it going to work? We don't have training capacity. All of these excuses, but here we are, September, AJ. Is there a single SRO in MPS?
There are no SROs yet. They're still working out an agreement between the Milwaukee Police Department and MPS on what exactly that would look like. One of the big questions that remains ongoing, because I did a story on this last week as well, was, hey, where are we on this? Because the latest escalation is John Jagler, the Senate Education Committee chair, had told me, he said, look, because I said, well, okay, they're 8 months overdue, but so what? What is the consequence for that? The law doesn't have any teeth in the text saying if MPS doesn't do this, X or Y will happen. He said if this continues and MPS does not implement the SROs in accordance with that, that state law, that sweeping state law with the shared revenue money and the city sales tax all baked into that, he said basically our last resort is going to be the legislature trying to claw back some of that shared revenue money that the city of Milwaukee received. So basically that was a shot across the bow of City Hall, saying, okay, we're getting frustrated with MPS. We know that MPS isn't getting this money, but the city did. So the city, we're going to kind of tighten the screws on you to put pressure on MPS. For those listening and don't know this, MPS and the city are different entities. Mm-hmm. School districts get their money from different places than the city does. So while the city got the city sales tax, that doesn't mean MPS is getting more money. And that's why MPS is saying, well, don't make us pay for these SROs. We're not getting more money. The city is.
How much is this related to the fact that the MPS very publicly has either overstated their financial situation or made it worse by incompetence?
Well, it certainly doesn't help that they had this financial mishap in the spring that's now going to cost them something like $40 million that they've been working over the summer to account for. So if you were going to say, MPS, you have to find a way to pay for this, it's going to be that much harder in the short term because of that correction that's happening in the state money. But just the principle of it, MPS's attitude seems to be, don't put all of this on us because we're not getting that money. This is an unfunded mandate from the state. The district's perspective is the state is being unfair. The state's perspective, at least the legislature's view, is this was a compromise. In order for the city to get its sales tax and increase the shared revenue, one of the things that we, as a Republican-controlled legislature, were insistent upon is that you bring SROs back into the schools. And there's going to be another fight potentially if and when we see that plan for how the SROs are put out, because Senator Jagler, and I'd imagine other Republicans would agree with him, his interpretation of the state law is officers stationed in the schools. You have an officer in that school for the entire school day. MPS, it sounds like, I talked to one of the board of directors, Henry Leonard. He said part of the conversation right now is, how exactly does that look? Are we picking a school and one of the 25 is based at that school, or is there a zone and the officer kind of rotates between several schools kind of within that district? And would the Republicans, the legislature, be satisfied under that scenario where you're kind of moving around between multiple buildings? Is that truly an SRO? Is it not? I mean, logistically, what's the best way to stretch 25 officers across an entire district?
Look, I understand there's sort of a racial aspect to this, and certainly the national stories about the relationship between public safety, police, and members of the African American community. I get all that. I know the history of the United States. I understand all that stuff. But at its bottom line, at its core, keeping kids safe. And we all read the reports from MPS. More calls to school. MPD's in the schools. They're just not SROs. They're coming to the school, which slows response time. And if you don't think that matters, Georgia, high school shooting, 2 SROs. They actually were able to press panic buttons, and thanks to the texter for pointing that out, reminding me about that, which got back up there right away, which probably saved lives. Thankfully, we haven't had that story happen and play out in Milwaukee Public Schools. But it's inexcusable, this is my opinion on this, inexcusable that MPS has played around with this for a while. And I want to ask you this question. Actually, we'll take a break and we'll come back to this. The mayor, these are separate entities, but the mayor of Milwaukee, Cavalier Johnson, has been very vocal on this issue, and he's always said this, and I'm paraphrasing. We're in conversation, it's in discussion. Obviously, he is certainly somebody who looks at the entire picture, not just city, but what happens in the schools with young people and obviously the streets with reckless driving. So this is something that he cares about. But at the end of the day, we're 9 months later, and kudos to John Jagler, by the way, from the state Senate, for keeping this front of mind and in the center of our conversation, because this is really important, especially what happened last week. So think about that, the role of MPS and public safety in the future of our kids. And, by the way, tying back to our first conversation, how do you learn if you don't feel safe in schools? That's a big question. We'll ask AJ that and more. You're listening, of course, to Political Power Hour on 620 WTMJ.
Buying a home should be a joy, but could you imagine doing this without a realtor? Paperwork, inspections, appraisals, deadlines, showings, market research? Or you could relax. Or understanding legal documents, negotiating offers, coordinating inspections, securing finance. Oh, sorry. A realtor can take the stress out of the home buying process. See how at wra.org/a-realtor-can. Brought to you by the Wisconsin Realtors Association.
Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Hey, this is WTMJ. Steve Skivity for Heiser Automotive. I love talking about Heiser. Not just a spokesperson, but now a owner of a brand new Heiser vehicle. My wife and I bought a brand new Chevy Trailblazer. Love it. Sometimes she even lets me drive it. It's that cool. And I've had the experience with Heiser now for 5 years, but right now I'm driving a beautiful, beautiful Chevy Equinox. Love it. It's actually very similar in color to what we have, which is sterling gray metallic. All the great safety features. This is something I talk about a lot when I talk about Heiser. They will keep you safe in your vehicle. All the lane keep assist, rear vision cameras, all the the blind spot monitoring, all that stuff is really important to driving, especially in Milwaukee in 2024. Safe and sound program, vehicle exchange program. If you don't love it, exchange it. All the great programs available all the time. Here's what you do. 5 great locations in the southeastern Wisconsin area. Check them out in person, or go to Heiser.com. All the things you need, pre-owned, new vehicles, see their inventory, see what's on sale. All their great service department. You want to schedule an appointment? They can do that for you. Body shop can handle that. All the reasons why you should be going to Heiser Automotive. Easy to find, 5 great locations, or at Heiser.com. That's why they say every day, and I say it all the time, today's your day.
It's a great time to save big on everything for your next project at Menards. Get free estimates fast on new energy-efficient windows from JELD-WEN. Choose from vinyl or wood windows and customize the perfect size and unique features for your home. Save big on all JELD-WEN windows today. View our entire selection of JELD-WEN windows on Menards.com. Plus, the weekly flyer for other great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
The next time you're due for service, visit richlands.com to schedule an appointment at any of our 5 conveniently located facilities.
All AAA approved and all staffed by ASE certified technicians ready to serve you.
Richlands.
Vince Vitrano for Great Lakes Landscape. You've been out in the yard this summer, starting to notice it's looking old, tired, boring. Let's fix that with Great Lakes Landscape. It can be as simple as fresh mulch and tightening up the edges on your flower beds. That's what Great Lakes did at my house. Or think big. Great Lakes Landscape can design and refresh your yard with new trees, plants, and perennials. Build a new space with a paver patio, fire pit, retaining wall. Still room on the schedule to get your project done so that you can enjoy it through the fall. Great Lakes Landscape. That's GreatLakesLandscape.wi.com.
Moving Graves headquarters to downtown Milwaukee was the right decision for the future of our company. Hi, I'm John Kissinger, President and CEO of Grave, a full-service engineering, planning, and design firm. We wanted to be part of downtown's vibrancy. Our goal was to create a collaborative and innovative work environment that would attract the next generation of talent. I love working downtown, and so do my employees. Experience it for yourself. Go to MilwaukeeDowntown.com.
Fascinating conversation about school education and some of the challenges, whether it's how you standardize grading or assess schools, or in the case of the last few minutes, talking about SROs in schools. I don't think it's a debatable topic. AJ Byport from CBS 58 joining me in studio. Lots of texts in support of SROs. There's a few that say this is too much money, and another texter asked, what do the kids think about it? Well, while I love young people, I don't want young people to drive the standards of schools, right? We're adults for a reason. And, I made dumb mistakes when I was a kid. I necessarily wouldn't be making the best decisions. I understand the historical implications of police officers in schools, the relationship in the community, and that between the African-American community and police. I get all that stuff. That's historical, importance, relevance. But the end of the day today, state law says SROs in public schools in Milwaukee, 25. They have played around with this for 9 months, September now. As John Jagler, state senator, said, this is ridiculous. They may look at funding. I would say, just as an additional measure, up it to 50. You will have 50, and here's the date. And if you don't do that, funding's pulled. And I understand that requires some state action. But if it's not consequences for behavior that you don't like, why would they change anything? And why would they do anything at all, AJ, on something they so far got away with for 9 months? It seems ridiculous.
Well, to your point about, the original point about the students being involved, it sounds like MPS is looking at having students be part of the interview process when they select an SRO. That, it's not that the students don't get to pick which officer serves, but the students are part of that interview process, is how it was described to me. So, make of that what you will. It seems as though giving that sense of a voice to students could be beneficial, and that they feel like
sure,
they're in the
be
room.
part of the process.
It's not being foisted on them.
Yeah.
And if you have kind of, students with leadership traits that are stepping up to be part of that interview process, it seems like that could potentially be of benefit. I talked to kind of the National Association of School Resource Officers way back several months ago, and the case they make for SROs is, well, look, if the police are going to respond to the school either way, and MPS did have more than 3,000 MPD responses to schools. To be fair, not all of it is because of something that happened after school. It's things like shot spotter activations nearby, reckless driving, a big problem in the city, of course. But a lot of those were for things like, fights, batteries, things like that happening in the schools. And the pro SRO argument is, if you have a good person in there, if you have a good officer in there who's building relationships, either there can be de-escalation so that those things don't happen in the first place. The SRO knows the student, is aware of if there are dynamics between a couple students. The SRO can kind of help cut that off, as opposed to an officer who's coming into this fresh, has no idea what may or may not be lingering and kind of spilled over. So that's the pro SRO argument. There's the relationship building that happens. There's also kind of an institutional knowledge that SRO builds up at that building. They know the students, they know each other, and with that trust, another student could be like, hey, Officer Steve, Billy and John are going to get into it, or something like that. So that would be the reasoning for it. But, and as some of your texters, the counter to that is that the best use of money?
Well, I think when you're talking about public safety, and in the case of, and obviously extreme example of a mass shooting, you want to have somebody inside the building that at least can mitigate some of that emergency situation so that it doesn't become more fatal, more deaths, and like, luckily we haven't had that problem here to worry about. All right, so somebody asked, I'll ask you, what has MPD said about this issue?
Nothing, basically. I mean, just kind of vague statements. Every time we ask, it's just the same, kind of boilerplate 2-sentence response of, we're working with MPS, in so many words.
Earlier in the year, there were some questions about they didn't have the training capacity to handle it. I don't know that's a real thing, because we certainly have classes graduating from the academy here, replacing retiring officers or other officers who have left. So, I mean, that argument seems to have gone away.
If MPD has concerns about, hey, we're having a hard enough time replacing retired officers, things like that, and now you're going to have 25 more officers that we have to dedicate to the schools, it's going to, strain us and kind of stretch us thin in other places. If that is a concern, if there's a training concern, MPD is not talking about that publicly, at least. That's something that you'd be getting behind the scenes. The public response is a incredibly vague boilerplate answer every time.
I'll just give this, somebody suggested this, if the state legislature is so concerned, why don't they direct funding directly to the SR program in school districts that they feel need them or don't have them? Dedicated funding, it would work, and MPS potentially would have less control over that. They would have the funds for this specific program to hire the SROs to put them in schools. That might be sort of an end run around whatever issues are happening between the states and MPS on getting this reality SROs happening in the schools. Interesting point. AJ Bayatpour, we'll see what he's going to be covering this week in his role as a local reporter for CBS 58. Great hour today on schools, standards, SROs. More of that's coming up after this on 620 WTMJ.
If you missed this,
WTMJ exclusive, there is a book out. It's Out of the Darkness, The Mystery of Aaron Rodgers. Looks incredible. I've read a lot of the excerpts. And the author of the book is a very accomplished journalist author, Ian O'Connor, and he is with us on WTMJ.
Or this.
Scott Ross, he's the former executive director of One Wisconsin Now. What is your analysis of the fact that Kamala Harris is not here tonight?
The state of Wisconsin is going to decide this election.
Check out Wisconsin's Afternoon News, the podcast.
Hey, this is WTMJ Steve Scavidi for Fox World Travel. Now, I've already told you about this, but I'm going to keep hammering it because there's not that many seats left. If you want to join us for our incredible October 2025 Sicily and Malta Mosaic, the island of Sicily, part of Italy, and then Malta, separate country, happening in October of 2025. And if you have signed up, text me your names. I'll read your first names on the show. I love the fact that you're already signed up. You can get an early booking discount, which is substantial. Sicily and Malta Mosaic. You can find it at Fox World Travel, right? FoxWorldTravel.com. Group travel, Sicily and Malta Mosaic. Scroll down a bit because it's next year, not this October, next October. My wife, Kath, and I would love to have you join us on this special WTMJ listener trip. Ancient ruins, charming old towns. There will be wine, of course. It's Italy, people. Sparkling coastlines, archaeological sites. And if you need this, an active volcano. How many have you seen? I've never seen an active volcano. I want to see that. Mount Etna there in Sicily. All right, 2 ways to do it. Go to foxworldtravel.com or call 866-GO-FOX-GO. Do not miss out on the early booking discount. If you're signed up, send me your names. I'll read your first names on the air. Sicily and Malta Mosaic. Call today.
Fleet Farm's got everything you need for everyday life. Brands from Carhartt to Milwaukee to Purina to Goodyear to Rapala to Levi's and a whole lot more. In-store or online, check out all the brands Fleet Farm carries to help make your everyday life better.
We love being a trusted friend in the community for those who need an attorney but don't know where to turn. Our clients aren't the kind of people who typically bring lawsuits. Our clients have been hurt in a crash or accident and need our help and advice. I'm Frank Pasternak of Pasternak and Zurgabel. Jeff Zurgabel and I are injury attorneys living, working, and giving back in our community. When you need help from exceptional personal injury lawyers, go to Pasternak and Zurgabel at injurywisconsin.com.
AccuNet Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 255368.
This is Chief Anti-Procrastination Officer Brian Wicker. Most homeowners and home shoppers have heard the Federal Reserve will cut rates by 0.25% in mid-September. Well, I have great news. When it comes to mortgage rates, it's like the cut has already happened. That's how markets work, and it means there's no reason to wait to either start or resume your home search because most 30-year fixed-rate loan scenarios will now have a rate and APR that starts with the number 6 instead of 7-point-something. The already lower mortgage rates also mean the refi window of opportunity is open for folks who bought their homes earlier this year or late last year with a rate in the mid to high 7s. If you can save $1,000 a year in payments and spend less than that in refi loan cost, do it. AccuNet can also typically offer a genuine no loan cost refi, which makes lowering your payment a genuine no-brainer. Don't wait. Click on the blue button today for a no-pressure refi checkup or to get started with your rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval. That's ACCUNET.com.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee from the Annex Wealth Management Studios. This is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station.
Fascinating hour on the Political Power Hour, Monday edition with journalists, and today's journalist AJ Bayatpour from CBS 58, who does a great job covering MPS and a lot of other stories. He also covered the DNC and the RNC. What are you going to be covering or looking at or reporting on this week?
Well, one of the stories I'm working on is the latest on the funding for a statewide literacy bill that's taking effect. Basically, there's a $50 million pot, and that money is going to be eligible for districts that adopt one of these approved sets of reading curricula that, they believe phonics-based help kids at an early age improve their reading comprehension. The problem is, as often happens in the state, is there's political fighting. Even after there's a bipartisan agreement on this bill, everyone agreed what this text should look like and the $50 million number everyone agreed on, but the governor partially vetoed the bill. The legislature believes that that's not the kind of bill that the governor can legally partially veto. So now we're getting in the weeds on whether the governor can or can't do something, and that's in court now. A Dane County judge sided with the governor on that, but now it's being appealed. So all while this legal fighting is happening, there's $49 million in change that's just sitting there that's supposed to be going out to school districts, and it's not. So just kind of the latest on what's happening there.
Yeah, it's just maddening. It's a classic example of how politics has just messed the bed on so many issues and just gets in the way. And when you have a bipartisan bill, one would think that it can sort of move forward. It can be paid for and implemented and rolled out and then analyzed and assessed that, hey, this actually works and tweaked. But that's not how it works. Money's thrown out. Everything's challenged in court today. There's not a damn decision that's made in the state legislature. It's not challenged by one side or the other. You can't even build a freeway in the state of Wisconsin without having that challenge in courts endlessly ad nauseum. That's my op-ed on freeway construction. It's maddening. I hope that, and I've talked to actually teaching professionals, reading professionals on that subject, and even among them there's disagreement. So this is not an easy one. But you have a pot of money, as you said, $50 million, to improve the literacy of Wisconsin's kids in schools. And here we are arguing about politics, arguing about little pieces instead of the big picture. That's maddening to me. AJ Bayatpour. Got to hear my speech at the end.
There you go.
Thanks, as always, for being here. Great local reporter. Just a great guy. AJ Bayatpour, CBS 58. Keep up the great work. We will hand it off to the news. And, of course, Jeff Sherman with the upswing after this on 620 WTMJ. Happy Monday.
Retirement planning can feel overwhelming, especially with the presidential election approaching. But at Drake & Associates, we believe in preparing you for the future, no matter what changes come our way. Political shifts can influence taxes, Social Security, and retirement savings. At Drake & Associates, our team can help you create a flexible retirement strategy designed to adapt to any political landscape. Whether it's higher taxes, changes in benefits, or new regulations, we're here to ensure your retirement plan stays on track. Don't leave your future to chance. Call or text PREPARE to 414